What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com. When the Droid Revolution was taking place on Verizon, a lot of Sprint users were thinking, hey, I've got this super awesome EVO 4G. Why don't they turn EVO into a brand name? Well, Sprint has listened to you. Well, you know, at least they've either listened to you or they have good marketing people, because the EVO is a brand name now with the EVO Shift 4G. It's the second EVO device, and it's pretty cool. It has an 800 MHz Snapdragon, next generation Snapdragon processor, 3.6-inch display, physical QWERTY keyboard, 5 megapixel camera, and best of all, 4G connectivity in Android 2.2. So it's a cool device, it's well equipped, and it's for that person that thinks, hey, I like the EVO, but I don't want to pay $199, don't need a big screen, etc., etc. We'll find out more about it in the review, but first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with 2 of these so we can give them to you in the One Paw Bandit game. One thing I like about Best Buy Mobile, when you walk in to get this, you don't have to deal with any rebates. It's $149.99 out the door, no waiting 8 to 10 weeks, no messy paperwork. Go to the store, you get it right away. Enough of that, let's get into it. HTC EVO Shift 4G. Review starts right now. Here it is, the HTC EVO Shift 4G. It's kind of like a compact version of the EVO, and I've been working with it for a few days, and I've been pretty impressed. You know, it packs everything that's good about the EVO, for the most part, down into a smaller package. It's missing a front-facing camera. The rear camera is 5 megapixels instead of 8. But overall, it's a nice device, 3.6-inch display. It has a nice physical QWERTY keyboard. It's running Android 2.2, 800 MHz next generation Snapdragon processor, so it's a pretty good device. And, you know, it's a lower price point, too. So for those people that think, hey, the EVO's too big, or don't like the form factor, or want a physical QWERTY, it's really a viable option. It's available now at Best Buy Mobile for $149.99, available at Sprint for $149.99. I think that's after mail-in rebate, but you'll want to double-check at the Sprint store. Hey, shut up, dog! We're trying to do a review! Sorry, I had to, there's dog barking outside, so I don't know if you can hear it on the audio and the video. I'm going to edit that, and you're not going to hear the audio, and I'm going to sound like an idiot. Anyway, here's what it looks like. It's a thicker device, obviously. Not too much, but a little bit thicker than the EVO 4G. It has a volume rocker on the left side, micro USB charging port, nothing on the right side, 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, a power button, of course, and then nothing on the bottom. 4 capacitive buttons just below the 3.6-inch display, home, menu, back, and search. And then you have at the top a status indicator. And what's pretty cool, the speaker is HTC's new speaker, at least that's what I call it. You'll see it on the Thunderbolt, the Inspire 4G, a couple of their newer devices. So at least from a design perspective, in my opinion, it looks newer than the EVO 4G. You have your 4-row QWERTY keyboard. Give them major props for having a dedicated spacebar row. Very cool there because it keeps the symbols and the spacebar separate from the rest of the keys on the keyboard, and a D-pad down here. Excuse me. So when you're playing your games, doing something like that, you have that connectivity. But it's nice because it's not like the original Droid. It's small enough to where you can still access the keyboard pretty easily. It's running Android 2.2 with HTC Sense user interface pre-installed, which I've said before and I'll say again, for first-time buyers, even advanced buyers, it's still my favorite Android overlay software as opposed to Motoblur or TouchWiz on Samsung. So as I said, it's packing Android 2.2 with HTC's Sense user interface. And I have to give HTC credit in another department. Sense UI is not only phenomenal, but it has phenomenal widgets as well. You can see they're very functional, very easy to use. Actually, some are pre-installed on the screen out of the box. But you look at this calendar widget as opposed to a stock Android calendar widget, and to me it's just more aesthetically pleasing, it's more functional, and HTC has quite a few widgets that beat the Android counterparts, in my opinion. Now on the HTC side, here's the widget screen. You have bookmarks, calculator, calendar, and then you'll see below it there's an Android alternative. You can click on that one as well. So if I wanted the Android alternative, I could click there and see the no upcoming calendar events. But let's jump back into that. Whoops. Let's go back into widgets just to get an idea. Clock, HTC, Facebook is an Android widget, FM radio, footprints, FriendStream, which is HTC's social aggregation tool where it brings together your Facebook, your Twitter, your MySpace, all of those into one program. Google Search is Android, Latitude's Android, Mail, HTC, text messages. This is one of my favorites because you can select 2 widget styles. That, which is the old style, or the second one. I'm sorry for the dog barking in the background if you can hear that. Or the second one, which I happen to like a lot. I need to create a space on the home screen. But you get the idea. Music, NASCAR, both Android, news and weather, etc., etc. But you have quite a few widgets out of the box that are both HTC and Android, so you have some fantastic customization options. Otherwise, the usual culprits are here: live wallpaper, HTC wallpapers. So let's take a look at some of the programs that come pre-installed on the EVO Shift 4G. You have, of course, Adobe Reader, Amazon MP3, app sharing, which is a feature of Android 2.2. You have Facebook pre-installed. You have Gmail. It's the new version of Gmail, which we'll cover in just a second. Google Search, the typical programs, Internet. You have Kindle on there, Maps, Market, Messages, things like that. It has Google's News and Weather widget, which is a nice touch, originally debuted on the Nexus 1, and then is available on most Android 2.2 devices now. Sprint Hotspot. So you can see my point that this is a really nice device for somebody who doesn't quite want an EVO, but you know, $149 might consider something like this. Other typical HTC programs, stocks. You have Telenav GPS Navigator pre-installed in lieu of Sprint Navigation. And then you have voicemail, weather, YouTube. Visual voicemail pre-installed on this as well. So I want to jump into messages. Let's take a look at both the on-screen and the physical QWERTY keyboard. What are we going to do with the Quick Brown Fox today? Let's see. The Quick Brown Fox is sick of being stuck in the office. So you can see, you know, despite it having a 3.6-inch display, it's not bad at all. The keyboard's very tactile, very quick, works well. And, you know, again, it's a smaller display, but I don't see any issues when I'm using that versus something like the Epic 4G, the iPhone 4, which actually is a little bit smaller, excuse me, or the EVO 4G either. Of course, you can use that in portrait or in landscape mode if you so choose. And then, of course, you can use the virtual, the physical QWERTY as well. So let's turn it this way and say the Quick Brown Fox is hungry. Hungry. I don't think the HTC recognizes that word. But the Quick Brown Fox is hungry. And you have that there. And then, of course, you can attach whatever you want to attach here. Contacts, music, pictures, things of that nature. And then you can send by pressing that button. It's threaded text messaging, of course. And it's really a nice platform. And, you know, when I pulled the device out of the box, I thought, okay, 3.6 inches. This is going to be kind of frustrating long term because I'm used to 4 inch or 4.3 inches. I'm pretty happy to say, even coming from a 4.3-inch device, it's a pretty decent display, and HTC's done a really good job with their keyboard, and the phone is fast, so haven't had any issues on that front. Let's take a look at the Gmail application because it has changed, and if you've watched any of my Android videos recently, you'll see that I've covered that to an extent. Let's see what's new in Gmail. I have my test email account. Let's go to Motoblur, for example, and you can see that the header is at top. So when I scroll up, it locks the header at the top. So let's say I'm halfway through the email and I want to say, oh, you know, I'm wondering who sent it to me, blurservice@motorola.com, and I can either reply or I can check my advanced options by clicking that reply all on forward. Archive and delete, forward and back still at the bottom. And then, of course, your typical refresh compose account. You can add more than one account as well to the device, just like you can on Android 2.1. But the benefit here is you can add it from there and you can see your inbox contents as well. In the phone application, they've done a really good job with integrating contacts and what those people are doing. So you open up your phone application, you can see some test contacts that I put in. Let's say I start to dial 555, it brings up Aaron Baker as my test number, and it brings it up also if I type in RON. You know, so I can either type it by the letter or by the number, and that brings it up. But also, you have your number pad, your recent calls, and then you can scroll over to your contacts. Let's go to Aaron Baker and see here. So you have the call home, send messages, ringtone, etc., etc. But you can scroll over and see the messages you've sent with that person, the mail, updates and events, so any Facebook events, things of that nature. And then you can scroll over, see call history, and a gallery, which, you know, you can link to Facebook, link to Flickr, and see those. So it's nice to have all of this stuff in one place versus going to 7 different applications and saying, you know, and going to 7 different applications and doing it that way. So I was pretty pleased and always have been pretty pleased with the integration there versus some of the other Android alternatives on the market. Let's take a look at the browser, and I'm going to throw on, we're going to throw on 4G. Since we're in a 4G area, get that ultimate speed, and while that's loading, we'll still pop up the internet anyway, and you can see phonedog.com again. PhoneDog, I can't type and talk at the same time. I have not learned that skill just yet. PhoneDog.com, and while that's loading and jumping onto 4G, we can talk a little bit more about it. You know, I've been pretty pleased with the browsing experience. You can use it, of course, in portrait or in landscape mode, and you can use the physical QWERTY anywhere across the board, obviously. And that's a nice touch. Speeds have been relatively decent. We'll get into the speed test shortly, but pinch to zoom has been reasonably responsive, and it does run Flash as it's an Android 2.2 device. It runs Flash out of the box, so that's pretty cool. And you can see the page is loading right now. It's still on 3G. Excuse me, it hasn't kicked up to 4G just yet, but as soon as it does, we'll see that in the top corner. You can see the typical sense bar while we're waiting for it to load. The typical sense bar here with the darker colors and the icons at the top, slightly different, but otherwise unchanged from the EVO 4G or any of the other Sense devices. It's just changed from stock Android and some of the other the carrier installed, manufacturer installed customizations. So not totally loaded, but pinch to zoom is still decent and reasonably responsive. Let's take a look here. So you can see pinch to zoom isn't bad at all, given that the device is running Flash. Come up here and double tap to zoom in. I'm saying excuse me a lot in this video. Excuse me. So you can see, pop that out, pop that up here, and bring up our logo, things of that nature, pinch to zoom. So it's pretty responsive, and of course you have the typical browser options, back, forward, add bookmark, windows, and more. So we can open up a second window if we wanted to. Bring up, let's say, I do this all the time in the videos, but let's say CNN. We're waiting for it to load, and we say, hey, I want to go back to PhoneDog because I don't have the patience to wait. Pop that up, and you're good to go. So you have that option.